Okay, so now that you have done the work to write out your worldview, sorry, your work view and your life view, which is interchangeably called your worldview. But now that you've done that, you should have some core beliefs that you understand about yourself. That, in addition to your personality and some thought around your character, should help you really understand a bit more about who you are and what you like in terms of your personality and your core beliefs, right? The other side of that is more tactical, and this is about what you actually enjoy in terms of activities. And you learn that from taking the time to really assess the activities that you really enjoy doing. So, some of us never take the time to really think about when is it that I am really in a state of enjoyment when I'm doing an activity, because we really don't pay a lot of attention to that. But those of us who, if you ask, they really love their job, will tell you, I just get absorbed in what I'm doing and it doesn't feel like work. And many of us have envied that because we have never really taken the time to assess, when am I in that state. And I'll tell you what I learned in the process of learning this course is that um, they didn't happen at work. You might find this as well. So the next section of this chapter, or this section, is about a good time journal. And this is also coming from Bill Burnett and Dave Evans. I really like this part of their book. And so I wanted to use it and leverage it. So thank you, Bill and Dave. But writing down when you are having your good time, a good time, what activities those are. So what I'm going to ask you to do, and this is where the course is going to take a pause and you'll have to reconvene. But for the next 3 weeks, at least try for 3 weeks, you guys, especially for those of you who are still working. You still have a job, you're at work. I know a lot of us are presently in a shift because we're in a pandemic when this course is being recorded. But for those of us who are working, I want you to take the next 3 weeks and I want you to create a journal of activities. And I'll give you some more details. Just look at the pages to come around what that journal looks like. But I want you to take the time to note activities you were doing when you were having a good time. So you got a time frame, right? So we're going to do this for the next 3 weeks. But you start by writing down the activity that you were doing. There's little engaging meters that I want you to use, but you don't have to create those. I'll share those with you in the course. You'll see those in a few minutes on the next slide. But at the end of each week, what I want you to do is to take the time to do some reflections. That's kind of going back to what we were doing before when we did our worldview and our life view, taking the time to really think. I want you to think about those activities that you did during the week and really ask yourself if there was any surprises in there. When you're thinking through your reflections, were there any surprises that you didn't expect? And I want you to write them down because they're going to be important for you. And then there is a tool that Bill Burnett and Dave Evans use called the AEIOU method that I think is going to help you further understand what your activities mean and when you are really in a state of what we call flow. What others are talking about when they say they're just engrossed in their job and they just really love what they're doing. And what the AEIOU method really is a way of zooming in on those activities. And they give you great insights into what you like and what you dislike. And we need those because at this phase in our journey, we really are just taking stock of what it is that we like and we dislike and who we are and understanding who we are. And so you need the tactical side of that along with the reflective, introspective side to be able to understand really who you are and what you want to do before you start to think about the challenges. So the AEO method, A stands for activities. And these are, what were you actually doing? Um, what was the activity? Was it structured? Was it unstructured? Did you have a role to play? So you can see this, you can read through these activities here and these descriptions here. But then the E part of this is the environment. Where were you? Where were you when this happened? So that makes a big difference. And I mentioned to you in the beginning of this video that you find out that you weren't at work. That was the surprise for me. When I got into a state of flow for me personally, I I was cooking. I was in the kitchen. It just seems to flow. Nothing, it just surprises you, right? So I want you to have your own surprise and revelation, right? What was your environment during that time? Interactions. I is for interactions. Who were you interacting with? Were you solo? Were you working with other people? Was it a machine that you were working with? Was it a formal situation? Was it informal? I is for interaction. Try to figure out what was happening there. I just happened to be alone. So I knew some things about myself and it confirmed some things about myself, right? O. O is for objects. Were you using any devices? Were you using any objects? iPads, smartphones. The examples are there. I want you to be mindful of what were you using when you went into this activity and you got into what we call this flow, the state of flow. U is for users. Who else was there? Okay. Did you have a role to play? We asked that before, but was it a positive or negative experience? And I'll explain the differences here between interactions and users. So, if you were doing something that required you to work with others, say I'm a cashier and part of my job is to serve or ring up the customer or whatever. If I found that the best part is when I have a customer that really engages me and I get into a conversation about how their day went or their hair looks nice, that person and how they engage me played a big part in how I felt. And that would be that would be you. That would be okay, this person made a big factor, right? Whereas interactions would have been, I do this all day, and if I was, it didn't matter the person, and I just enjoyed it regardless, whether the cranky person or the happy person. I just enjoy being able to see people. That would be the interactions. But the person in particular, I really enjoy working with. Their personality or their behavior really impacted me. That's the user themselves. So that's the way I have distinguished it. And I hope Bill and Dave, that was the intentional way to distinguish it. But that was the way I was able to distinguish between the two. So I'll recap here the method that we use to zoom in on our activities and to really start to track our activities is the AEIOU method. We've heard that before. The vowels AEIOU. A being for activities, what was I doing? E being for environment, where was I? I being interactions, who was I working with at that time? O being objects, what was I using? Were there any devices involved? U being users, what was their behavior? What was the behavior of the people that I was working with at that time? Okay. So to recap this section in particular, so what we were trying to do with this section is to help you to really understand you better. So the goal of empathize is to really understand yourself. And the tools that we have put forward for you to do that, I mentioned, was the equilibrium personality test. We want you to understand the personality, even though it's a small part, and reflect on how that, in addition to your character, figures out who you are. And then we also had you work on your worldview and your work view. Those two activities take about 30 minutes in total. We wanted you to spend 15 minutes on each to write about 250 words for what you think your life view looks like and what you believe your work view looks like. The next phase of this is to start a good time journal, which is going to take some time, about 3 weeks. And I want you to spend time writing down every activity that you're doing, noted activities that you're doing. When you go to a meeting, when you have to lead a meeting, when you have to cook dinner, when you have to take the kids to, and you know, training, whatever it is, when you teach a course, whatever you do over the next 3 weeks, noted activities, note them down, and then zoom in on those activities so that you can start to see how they impact you. Were they draining? Were they great? Who was involved? Start to use the AEIOU method to zoom in on those activities to get you some more detail about them, because then you will know which activities you were doing, what environment you were in, what, sorry, what interactions you were having, what objects you were using, and of course, what users. So, you guys, I want to that was my attempt at a recap, but I want to give you time to digest this section because it really is the foundation to doing the rest of the work. And I know it's going to take more time than you may have thought. This course is going to take more time than you have thought because you do have to spend some time creating that journal. What I would say is if you don't have the time to do the 3 weeks of journaling, then you can start by writing as many things down as you know, and then supplement that as you go. But I would encourage you to take the time to do it. So appreciate your time thus far. When you come back and you reconvene this course, we will start on the next section, which is define. And there's a really cool tool that, or I should say, technique for transforming what you've captured in your good chime journal into some opportunities and defining opportunities. So it gets very interesting after this. I will see you back here after this. Thanks.